A U.S. biker father returns home after months away, but what waits for him is not his daughter's smile. The moment he turns into the neighborhood, police cars are lined up in front of his ex-wife's house, and then he sees his 6-year-old daughter being led out, her whole body trembling, her face covered in bruises, while the stepfather stands behind the doorway, coldly blaming her for everything. But what they didn't know was this. The father did not come home alone. Beside him was his loyal shepherd dog, born to protect, and that day, the truth behind the little girl's darkest months finally started to surface. You won't believe what happened next. The morning in the outer area of Austin was cold and rough. The sky was gray and the air felt heavy. There were no signs of sunlight, and the wind was strong enough to make people wrap their jackets tighter. The trees near the road had no leaves, and the ground was a mix of dry dirt and old grass. Cars passed by quickly because nobody wanted to stay outside in that cold wind. On the service road leading toward the city, a black Harley motorcycle moved steadily. The sound of the engine was loud and deep. The rider was a large man named Jack Miller. He was in his early 40s, tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and short dark hair. His face looked tired but focused, and both of his arms were covered with tattoos that ran down to his wrists. He wore a black helmet, a heavy leather jacket, faded jeans, and strong boots that looked like they had been used for many years. Behind him, attached securely on the motorcycle, was a custom metal crate. Inside it sat Duke, a big German shepherd with black and tan fur. Duke was calm, alert, and used to long rides. His ears were pointed up, and his eyes followed everything around him. He wore a simple collar with a tag that had Jack's number on it. Jack had been riding for hours, starting early before sunrise. He was coming back to Austin after months of working on construction jobs in another state. The long work trip had started right after his divorce was finalized. The divorce had been stressful for him, not only because the marriage ended, but because it separated him from his daughter, Lily. She was 6 years old, with dark hair and big brown eyes. She was small, gentle, and usually quiet in new situations. She liked drawing, pancakes, and playing with dogs. Jack missed her every day. The legal agreement after the divorce required Jack to stay away for a certain period, so the child could adjust to the new family situation. Jack accepted it, even though he hated being far from Lily. He worked long hours at construction sites, saved money, and tried to rebuild his life. He planned to return only after everything was stable. But over the last few weeks, he had felt strongly that he needed to see his daughter sooner. Something inside him kept telling him to go home. His ex-wife, Megan, also lived in Austin. She was a woman who cared a lot about appearance, always wearing neat clothes, makeup, and matching accessories. She had moved on very quickly after the divorce and married a man named Carl. Jack met Carl twice. Carl was around medium height, clean-shaven, with short light brown hair and a rounder body. He worked in sales and often spoke about money, houses, and his work phone. His smile looked polite but didn't feel warm. Jack didn't trust him, but he tried to stay calm around him for the sake of Lily. Jack thought about all of this as he rode toward the city. The wind hit his jacket, but he barely noticed. His mind was filled with the image of Lily. The last time he saw her was during a supervised visit at a family center. She had run to him the moment she saw him, hugging him tightly. She had asked him if he still had his big, loud bike. He promised her that he would visit her again on the Harley and take her for a slow ride around the neighborhood when it was safe. Remembering her small hands pulling on his beard made his chest tighten with emotion. After a few more miles, Jack pulled into a small gas station. The parking lot was cracked, and the sign above the pumps flickered. He turned off the engine. The sudden quiet felt strange after hours of constant riding. Duke stood inside the crate, ready to jump out. Jack opened the door, and Duke hopped down, stretching his legs. Jack filled the tank first. The cold air stung his face, and his breath came out in visible white clouds. When the tank was full, he walked inside the station to pay. The cashier was a tired teenage boy wearing a hoodie and headphones. He barely looked at Jack and mumbled a quick thanks. Jack nodded and walked back outside. Duke sniffed the area calmly, tail moving slightly. Jack clipped a short leash to Duke's collar and walked him around the edges of the lot. A few cars passed by on the road. A distant siren sounded somewhere in the city, but it disappeared quickly. Jack took a slow breath. Something about today made him uneasy, but he tried to ignore the feeling. After Duke finished stretching, Jack helped him back into the crate and secured the latch. He checked the straps twice to make sure everything was tight. Then he climbed onto the Harley again and adjusted his gloves. "Almost there," he said quietly. He didn't know if he was talking to Duke or himself. He started the engine, and the loud sound filled the air again. Jack pulled out of the gas station and continued toward the old neighborhoods in East Austin. Houses there were smaller and closer together. Some yards were clean, and others were cluttered with toys or old furniture. The streets were narrow. The air smelled slightly of smoke from nearby chimneys. Jack rode more slowly now. He recognized the streets. He had driven here many times when he lived with Megan. The houses were familiar, even after months away. He passed by a house with a red truck in the driveway, another with a broken fence, and then saw the street he needed to turn onto. Before turning, he stopped the motorcycle for a moment. He looked down the street where his ex-wife lived, with her new husband and with Lily. A heavy feeling settled in his stomach, but he pushed it aside. He wanted to see his daughter. That was all that mattered. He gently turned the motorcycle into the neighborhood street. The houses on both sides looked quiet. A few cars were parked along the sidewalks. A dog barked behind a fence somewhere. The wind continued to blow, but not as hard as earlier. Jack moved slowly toward the house where his daughter lived. He imagined Lily sitting inside, maybe drawing or playing. He hoped she would be happy to see him. He hoped she had been doing well. He hoped nothing bad had happened in the months he was gone. He had no idea what he was about to see. He had no idea that the moment he reached that house, everything would change. The motorcycle rolled forward, steady and calm, carrying a father who only wanted to be near his child again, without knowing that danger was waiting just ahead on this quiet street. Jack continued riding slowly down the narrow street. He had been away for months, and now every house he passed made him feel more nervous. He tried to stay calm, but his grip on the handlebars tightened without him realizing. Duke shifted in the crate, sensing the change in Jack's breathing. As Jack approached the familiar white house with the small front yard and the short driveway, something caught his attention immediately. A police car was parked across the driveway with its lights off. The doors were closed, but the sight of it made Jack's chest tighten. He slowed down even more. His mind quickly searched for explanations. Maybe it was a neighbor, maybe it was unrelated. But deep inside, he already felt that something was wrong. The closer he got, the more details he saw. The front door of the house was open. A second police car was parked slightly down the street. Two officers were standing near the walkway that led to the porch. One of them was talking into a handheld radio. The other was watching the front yard with a serious expression. Jack pulled the Harley to the side of the street and turned off the engine. The sudden silence made everything feel sharper. Duke stood up inside the crate, tail stiff, ears forward. The dog gave a low, short sound in his throat. It was not loud, but it was enough to tell Jack that Duke sensed stress nearby. Jack took one deep breath and stepped off the motorcycle. His boots hit the pavement hard. He removed his helmet and hooked it on the handlebar. His hair was messy from the ride, and the cold air hit his face instantly. He didn't care. His eyes were locked on the open door of the house. Before he could take a step, one of the officers noticed him and raised a hand. "Sir, please stay back," the officer said firmly. Jack ignored the warning and walked forward anyway. He spoke loudly, trying to keep his voice steady. "That's my kid's house. What's going on here?" The officer stepped toward him to block his path. He was in his late 30s, short brown hair, clean-shaven, average build. His name tag read Evans. "Sir, I understand you're concerned," Officer Evans said, "but we need you to keep your distance until we clear the situation." Jack's voice grew sharper. "Where's my daughter? Her name is Lily Miller. She lives here." Before the officer could reply, a small figure appeared in the doorway of the house. It was Lily. Jack froze. Lily stood at the top of the small porch steps. She was wearing a thin long-sleeve shirt that was too big for her, and her hair was messy and tangled. She was holding a backpack with both hands, hugging it tightly against her chest. Her face looked pale. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. And then Jack noticed the bruises. There were dark marks on her wrists and a faint bruise near her cheek. His stomach twisted painfully. He had not seen her in months, but even from a distance, he knew something was wrong. "Lily!" Jack called out. Lily's head jerked up. Her eyes widened when she saw him. For a moment she looked unsure, almost scared to believe he was really there. Then her knees weakened, and she took a small step forward. But before she could run to him, another figure appeared behind her. Carl. Carl placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, stopping her. His grip looked tight. Carl was wearing a button-up shirt and jeans, his hair perfectly styled, but his face was stiff. He looked annoyed, not worried. Jack's body tensed immediately. "What are you doing?" Jack said, stepping forward quickly. Officer Evans moved to block him again. "Sir, please." Jack's voice turned hard. "Move aside. That's my daughter." The second officer, a woman named Officer Reyes, joined them. She was tall, sharp-eyed, with her hair tied back in a tight bun. She held up a hand. "Sir, we need to keep control of the scene. The child is being taken into protective custody for now." Jack felt like someone punched him in the chest. Protective custody? Why? What happened? Carl stepped forward, still holding Lily by the shoulder. He spoke in a calm voice, but it had a cold tone underneath. "The girl caused trouble again," Carl said. "She tried to break things in the house and hit me when I tried to stop her. I've been telling Megan we need help, but she never listens." Lily's eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly, gripping her backpack even tighter. Jack pointed directly at Carl. "Don't touch her." Carl's posture became stiff. "She's unstable, Jack. She needs professional help." The officer saw her. Jack stepped even closer until Officer Evans had to hold out an arm to stop him. "She's 6 years old," Jack said, voice low and dangerous. "What kind of grown man says something like that?" Officer Reyes stepped between them, keeping her voice firm but neutral. "We need to examine the child's injuries and get statements from everyone. Please stay calm." Jack took a breath, but it did nothing to help. The wind blew harder, but he barely felt the cold now. "Let me talk to my daughter," he said. Carl opened his mouth to object, but Officer Reyes turned to him sharply. "Mr. Carlson, step aside. Her biological father has a right to speak to her unless we determine otherwise." Carl hesitated, but slowly released Lily's shoulder. The moment his hand lifted, Lily ran. She ran down the steps with small, shaking legs and threw herself into Jack's arms. Jack knelt and caught her instantly, holding her tight against his chest. She was so light, too light. He could feel her ribs when he wrapped his arms around her. "Daddy," she whispered with a trembling voice. Jack swallowed hard. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Duke barked loudly from the motorcycle, sensing the emotional shift. The officers and Carl all looked in that direction. Duke's eyes were locked on Carl, body tense. Jack loosened his hold, only enough to look at Lily's face. He gently moved her hair aside. "What happened to your cheek?" he asked softly. Lily didn't answer. She just pressed her head against his chest. Jack turned to the officers, his anger rising fast. "You see this. She didn't do this to herself." Carl stepped forward quickly. "She did. She threw a tantrum and—" Jack stood up while still holding Lily. His size alone made Carl instantly step back. Jack's voice stayed low, but every word was sharp. "Say something like that again, and see what happens." Officer Reyes stepped between them again. "Everyone calm down. We need to examine the child, and we need to follow procedure." Jack nodded slightly, even though anger shook inside him. "Fine, but I'm staying right here." The officers led Jack and Lily toward the police car to ask questions. Meanwhile, Carl stood near the porch, crossing his arms, irritated that things weren't going his way. Megan was nowhere to be seen. Lily held on to Jack tightly and refused to let go of his jacket. When Officer Reyes gently asked her where she got the bruises, Lily looked down. Her small shoulders shook. Jack pressed his forehead against hers. "It's okay. You can tell them. I'm here now." Lily nodded slightly, but tears rolled down her cheeks. Jack looked at the officers. "You're not taking her anywhere without me." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His expression said enough. The officers exchanged a look, seeing the situation differently now. Everything pointed to one truth. This child was not the problem. Someone else in that house was. Officer Reyes led Jack toward the police car parked by the sidewalk. Jack kept one arm around Lily, holding her close as if he was afraid she would disappear if he let go. Lily clung to him with both hands, her small fingers gripping the fabric of his jacket tightly. Her backpack hung off one shoulder, almost falling. Duke watched from the motorcycle crate, standing tall and alert. His eyes never left Lily or Jack. His ears were pointed forward, and every muscle in his body looked ready to react if something went wrong. Officer Evans joined them by the patrol car. He kept his voice calm and spoke carefully, choosing his words slowly. "Sir, we need to understand what happened inside the house," Evans said. "We're not here to make assumptions. We want to protect the child." Jack nodded once. "Good. Then start by asking the right questions." Evans looked at Lily and softened his tone. "Sweetheart, can you tell us anything about the bruises on your arms and face? Did someone hurt you? Lily pressed her face into Jack's chest. She didn't answer. Jack rubbed her back gently. It's okay. Nobody is going to yell at you here. Reyes crouched to Lily's eye level. She didn't get too close. She left space so the child wouldn't feel trapped. It's all right if you can't talk yet, Reyes said softly. You don't have to explain anything right now. We're just making sure you're safe. Lily lifted her head slightly. Her eyes were wet but focused on the officer. She gave a tiny nod, but her lips stayed closed. Jack exhaled slowly. He felt relieved that the officers were being patient. But he was still angry, still tense. Before they could continue, Carl walked toward them. His steps were quick and irritated, like someone who wanted to control the situation. Officers, Carl said loudly, I already told you. She attacked me and caused damage in the house. I've been trying to manage her behavior for months. She's lying about everything. Jack turned his head sharply. She hasn't said a word. Nobody is lying except you. Carl pointed at the bruise on Lily's cheek. She did that to herself. She threw herself against the wall during a tantrum. Jack took one step forward. One more word, Carl, and Officer Reyes raised a hand. Stop, both of you. Carl huffed, but stayed where he was. Reyes continued. Mr. Carlson, please do not interfere. We're still gathering information. Carl frowned. I'm her stepfather. I live with her. I should be part of this. Jack answered immediately. You're the reason we're standing out here. Back off. Carl's jaw tightened, and his cheeks flushed with anger, but he didn't move closer. Officer Evans turned toward Carl. We also need a statement from the mother. Where is she? Carl cleared his throat. Inside. She's upset. This is stressful for her. Jack spoke without hesitation. Bring her out. Carl didn't like the demand, but he stepped back toward the house. Reyes looked at Evans. Let's get photos of the bruises. Child Protective Services will want them. I know, Evans replied. Jack stiffened. You're not taking pictures of her while she's shaking like this. Reyes explained calmly, Sir, it's required. It helps us build the case. And you can stay right here with her the entire time. Jack looked down at Lily. Her small body trembled against him, but she wasn't crying loudly. She was holding it all in. He nodded reluctantly. Fine, but I'm not letting go of her. Evans took out his camera and prepared it. The lens clicked softly as he adjusted it. Lily, Evans said gently, can I take a picture of your cheek? Your dad will hold you the whole time. She didn't respond verbally, but she didn't hide her face either. That was enough. Jack turned his body slightly so the officer could get a clear view. As Evans snapped the photo, Lily winced at the sound, not because it hurt, but because it scared her. Jack whispered, It's okay, just one. Duke barked once, a deep protective sound, as if warning Evans not to scare the girl again. Evans stayed calm. Good job, Lily. Just a couple more. After the photos were taken, Evans put the camera away. Jack hugged Lily closer again, as if to protect her from every sound, every movement. A moment later, Carl reappeared at the front door. Behind him stood Megan. Megan looked different from the last time Jack saw her. Her blonde hair was messy, mascara smudged under her eyes. She wore a thin sweater and stood with her arms crossed tightly, as if she were cold, even though the wind had died down a little. When she saw Jack holding Lily, something flashed across her face. It wasn't guilt. It looked more like annoyance. She stepped onto the porch. Jack, what are you doing here without warning? Jack ignored the question. Why does our daughter look like this? Megan's eyes flicked toward the officers, then back to Jack. She's been difficult lately. She doesn't listen. She makes messes. Sometimes she hurts herself for attention. Lily flinched in Jack's arms when she heard her mother's voice. Jack clenched his teeth. She is 6 years old. Megan let out an exaggerated sigh. You don't understand because you're not the one raising her. Carl and I are trying our best. Jack stared at her. Your best gave her bruises? Megan glared back. Don't accuse me. You haven't been here. Officer Reyes stepped between them again. Ma'am, we need your statement as well. And I need to ask, has this child received any medical care for her injuries? Megan hesitated. They weren't serious enough for that. Evans wrote something down in his notebook without hiding it. Jack felt Lily tighten her arms around him again. Reyes continued. Ma'am, bruises on the face and wrists are serious. Carl interrupted. She breaks things. She lashes out. We can't control her. Jack turned to him slowly. What did you say? Carl raised his chin. She needs to be in a facility or with someone trained to handle behaviors like hers. Jack's voice was cold. "You just don't want to raise her." Carl didn't respond, but his silence spoke clearly enough. Reyes turned to Jack. "Sir, can we ask the child a few more questions while you're holding her?" Jack nodded. Reyes crouched again. "Lily, did someone hurt you?" Lily looked up at her father, searching his eyes for permission. Jack nodded gently. "It's okay. I'm here." Lily swallowed hard. She opened her mouth slightly, closing it again before finally whispering one soft word. "Carl." The officers froze. Carl stepped forward quickly. "She's lying." Jack turned on him instantly. "Shut up." Reyes stood up straight. "Mr. Carlson, stop speaking." Evans touched his radio. "We need CPS here immediately." Carl shouted, "This is ridiculous. She's manipulating you." Reyes didn't even look at him. "We will determine that." Lily buried her face into Jack's chest again. Jack kissed the top of her head. "You did good," he whispered. Evans stepped closer. "Sir, for now, the child stays with you, until further evaluation." Jack felt a breath he didn't realize he had been holding escape his chest. His arms tightened around Lily. Carl threw his hands up in frustration. "You can't do this. We're her household," Reyes replied sharply. "And you're under investigation." Carl's face went red. He took one step toward Jack, but Duke barked again, loud, sharp, warning. Carl immediately stopped. Megan looked overwhelmed, but still didn't go to her daughter. She just stood there, rubbing her arms, uncertain. Jack didn't look at her again. His entire focus was on the trembling girl in his arms. Reyes said, "Sir, please take her to your vehicle. Stay with her. CPS will arrive shortly and speak to you directly." Jack nodded. "Let's go, Lily." He walked toward the motorcycle, holding her securely. Duke whined softly when he saw them coming. Jack knew one thing clearly now. Whatever happened inside that house today was only the beginning of the truth he was about to uncover. Jack carried Lily back toward his motorcycle, holding her close against his chest. The wind had grown weaker, but the cold was still noticeable on her skin. Her small arms wrapped around his neck tightly, and every now and then he felt her body shake from the leftover fear. Duke watched them with intense focus, standing inside his crate with his ears raised and tail still. Officer Reyes walked beside Jack, keeping her notebook in hand. She spoke quietly, careful not to startle Lily. "Sir, CPS is on their way. It may take 10 to 15 minutes." Jack nodded. "We'll wait." When they reached the Harley, Jack opened the passenger seat area and sat down with Lily on his lap. Duke leaned forward, sticking his nose through the bars of his crate, sniffing Lily gently, as if checking whether she was okay. Lily weakly lifted her hand and touched Duke's head. "Good boy," she whispered. It was the first calm thing she had said since all of this started. Jack ran his hand slowly through her hair. "You did great, sweetheart. No one is going to hurt you again." Lily didn't respond out loud, but she leaned her head against his shoulder. Jack could feel her breathing slowly settle into a steady rhythm. She wasn't completely calm, but she was no longer shaking the way she had been. Officer Evans approached them with his radio clipped to his chest. He glanced at Lily, then looked at Jack. "Sir, can I ask you a few more things?" "As long as she stays with me," Jack replied. Evans nodded. "Of course." He opened a small form on his tablet. "How long has it been since you last saw your daughter in person?" 6 months, Jack answered. "Supervised visit." Evans typed it in. "During that visit, did she have any noticeable bruises, injuries, or signs of fear?" "No. She was quiet sometimes, but she was always fine with me." Evans nodded slightly as he typed. "And since then, have you had any concerning phone calls, messages, anything from her or your ex-wife that made you believe she might be unsafe?" Jack thought for a moment. Megan barely lets Lily talk on the phone. When she does, it's quick. She always sits right next to her. I could tell Lily didn't talk freely. Evans raised an eyebrow. "Did Lily ever indicate fear or discomfort?" "She never said it, but I could hear hesitation in her voice. She always whispered, 'I miss you,' like she didn't want someone else to hear." Evans typed more. "All right, thank you." Megan and Carl were still standing near the porch. Megan looked nervous, rubbing her hands together. Carl was pacing back and forth, whispering angrily to himself. Occasionally he pointed at the officers, though no one was listening to him anymore. Jack watched Carl carefully. Every time Carl moved too quickly, Duke growled quietly in his crate. A black SUV turned onto the street, and slowed down near the house. It had a government plate. The car parked behind the second police vehicle, and a woman stepped out. She wore a thick navy coat, carried a black folder, and had a badge clipped to her pocket. Her hair was tied in a tight ponytail, and her expression was serious but not harsh. Officer Reyes walked to meet her. "This is Ms. Hannah Cole from Child Protective Services." Hannah approached with steady steps. She looked at Lily in Jack's arms first, and her eyebrows lowered in concern. She spoke gently. "Hello, Lily. My name is Hannah. I'm here to help." Lily didn't answer, but she didn't hide either. She looked at Hannah for a second, then turned her face into Jack's jacket again. Hannah turned to Jack. "And you are?" "Jack Miller, her father." She nodded. "I'll need to ask some questions, and I'll also need to look at the child's injuries. You can stay with her the whole time." Jack nodded. "Whatever she needs." Hannah looked at the officers. "What do we know so far?" Reyes summarized quickly. "Child came out of the house with visible bruises, no explanation that makes sense. Conflicting stories from stepfather, mother, appears emotionally detached. Child identified stepfather as source of injury." Hannah looked back at Megan and Carl, who were standing together. Carl crossed his arms while Megan looked down at the ground. "I will speak to them next," Hannah said, "but first I want to check the child." Jack shifted Lily so Hannah could kneel in front of them. She kept her tone soft. "Lily, can I see your hands?" Lily hesitated, then slowly extended one hand from Jack's jacket. Hannah gently touched the bruises around the wrist. Her expression hardened, but she stayed professional. "And your cheek?" Lily turned her head slightly. Hannah leaned in to see better. "These are not accidental bruises," Hannah said quietly. "Someone grabbed her, hard." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, controlling the anger that surged inside him. Hannah added, "I'm going to write an emergency placement order. She will stay with you for now, Mr. Miller." Jack nodded. "Thank you." Hannah then stood and walked toward Megan and Carl. "Mr. Carlson, Ms. Rowland, I need statements." Carl spoke first. "Good. Maybe you can explain to these officers that the kid is out of control. She needs help." Hannah looked him straight in the eyes. "Children do not receive bruises like these from tantrums." Carl's face twitched. "She attacks us. She throws things. She lies." Hannah raised her hand sharply. "Stop. I'm not asking for excuses. I'm asking for facts." Megan swallowed. She's been different lately. Harder to manage." Hannah asked, "Do you discipline her physically?" "No," Megan said quickly. "Of course not." Hannah stared at her. "Then who does?" Megan's eyes flicked toward Carl for the briefest moment. Carl stepped forward. "You can't talk to us like—" Hannah cut him off. "I will talk however I need to when a child is injured." Carl shut his mouth, but anger filled his expression. Hannah continued, "Based on the evidence, I'm placing Lily in the protective care of her father while we conduct a full investigation. Neither of you are to approach him or the child until we complete our review." Megan's eyes widened. "But I'm her mother," Hannah said calmly, "and you failed to protect her." Megan stepped back as if someone pushed her. Carl exploded. "You can't take her away. This is my house." Jack walked forward then, holding Lily securely. "She's not your anything," Jack said plainly, "and she's not staying here another minute." Carl lunged forward a step. "You don't get to decide." Duke barked again, louder this time. It echoed down the quiet street. Carl froze, inches from crossing a line he couldn't come back from. Officer Reyes stepped toward him. "Mr. Carlson, stand down. Now." Carl slowly backed up, face burning red. Hannah nodded to Jack. "You can take Lily to your vehicle. I'll file the paperwork tonight. CPS will contact you with next steps." Jack nodded. "Let's go." He walked Lily to the motorcycle again. But instead of putting her in the crate or on the seat, he sat down and held her on his lap. "You're coming with me," Jack whispered. "I promise." Lily rested her head against him and whispered, "Daddy, don't leave me again." Jack's throat tightened. He hugged her gently but firmly. "I won't, not ever again." The officers, Hannah, and even Duke stayed alert as Jack and Lily sat together. For a moment, everything felt still. But inside Jack's mind, one thought was clear. This wasn't just about bruises. Something much worse had been happening in that house. And now, he intended to find out exactly what it was. Jack held Lily close as he prepared the motorcycle for the ride. It was clear she couldn't ride on the bike in her current condition. She was too weak, still trembling, and her small fingers refused to let go of Jack's jacket. Officer Reyes noticed this and walked over. "Sir, do you have another vehicle? A motorcycle is not safe for the child right now." Jack nodded. "I do. It's in a storage unit I rent on the south side. I just need to get her there." Reyes thought for a moment. "I'll follow you until you reach the storage facility. CPS approved that you transport her yourself, but we'll stay close to make sure nothing happens." Jack appreciated that. "Thank you." Hannah, the CPS worker, finished speaking with the officers and came toward them. "Jack, I'll meet you tomorrow morning at the department office. We'll go over emergency custody papers and start the investigation. Tonight, focus on her safety." Jack nodded firmly. "I will." Hannah bent down slightly to address Lily. "Lily, you're going to go with your dad now. You'll be safe with him." Lily gave a small nod but didn't look up. Her arms tightened around Jack. Hannah stepped back. "I'll check in later." The officers returned to the house to finish paperwork with Megan and Carl, both of whom now looked more frustrated than guilty. Neither one approached Lily or even tried to say goodbye. Jack wasn't surprised, but the coldness still hit him in the chest. Jack carefully lifted Lily onto the front seat of the Harley, but he didn't start the engine yet. Instead, he sat behind her with both arms around her, warming her hands with his own. "Sweetheart," he said quietly, "I need you to sit with me for a short ride. I'll go slowly. Officer Reyes will follow us. Duke will come too." Lily looked at the crate where Duke waited. She reached a weak hand toward him through the bars. Duke pressed his nose into her palm, letting out a soft whine. Jack adjusted his jacket around her like a blanket. When she leaned against his chest, he felt how light and fragile she was. He started the engine, but kept the speed very low as they pulled away from the house. Officer Reyes followed right behind them in the patrol car. As they turned the corner, Jack checked the side mirror. Carl stood on the porch, with his arms crossed, glaring at them. Megan stood behind him, arms wrapped around herself. Neither of them called out Lily's name. Neither of them asked where she was going. That told Jack everything he needed to know about the past 6 months. The ride to the storage facility took about 15 minutes. Jack kept his arms securely around Lily the entire time. She didn't speak, but every time the motorcycle slowed for a stop sign, she tightened her grip slightly, as if making sure he was still there. When they arrived, Jack parked at the entrance of a row of metal storage units. Officer Reyes pulled in behind them, stepped out of her patrol car, and walked toward them. "This place looks secure," she said. Jack nodded. "I keep my truck here." He set Lily down gently. Her legs wobbled, so he placed one hand behind her back to steady her. Duke barked quietly from the crate. Jack opened it, and Duke walked out, staying close to Lily immediately. Jack typed in the code to open his storage unit. The metal door rolled upward with a loud clatter. Inside was his old pickup truck, an older model Ford, dark blue, with a few dents but in good working condition. There were also boxes stacked neatly along the walls, holding the rest of his belongings from before the divorce. "Give me 1 second," Jack said to Lily. He opened the truck door, checked the interior, and turned on the heater. Then he returned to Lily and lifted her inside, buckling her into the front passenger seat. Duke jumped into the back seat and sat upright, keeping his eyes on her. Officer Reyes stepped back. "I'll file my report tonight. You take care of her. If anyone tries to contact you or causes trouble, call the department directly." Jack nodded. "I appreciate your help." Reyes gave him a short nod and returned to her patrol car. She waited until she saw Jack pull out of the facility before driving off. Jack drove slowly through the city, heading toward the small apartment he had rented after the divorce. It wasn't big, but it was clean, quiet, and safe. Lily watched the passing streetlights silently. Her eyes were half open, exhausted, and her breathing was unsteady. Jack reached over and held her hand gently at every red light. She always held his hand back. When they reached the apartment, Jack parked the truck and carried Lily inside. The apartment had 1 bedroom, a living room, and a small kitchen. Jack had kept it simple: clean couch, small dining table, old TV on a stand, and a few decorations Lily had made during their visits. Jack closed the door behind them and locked it. Duke walked around the apartment, checking each corner like he always did, then sat near the couch. Jack placed Lily on the couch carefully. "Are you hungry?" She shook her head lightly. "Do you want water?" Another small shake. Jack knelt down beside her. "Honey, I need to check if there are any other injuries. I won't touch anything that hurts without telling you." She hesitated, then lifted her arms slightly in agreement. Jack examined her wrists, then her arms, then her back. Each new bruise he found made his stomach twist more. Some were old, some were fresh. She had small marks near her ribs, as if someone had grabbed her too hard. There were faint bruises on her legs, too. Jack kept his voice steady. "Did Carl do all this?" Lily nodded once. "Did your mom try to stop him?" Lily shook her head. Jack closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he felt more determined than angry. Anger wouldn't fix anything, but determination would. He wrapped her in a warm blanket and sat beside her. "From now on," he said softly, "you're safe. You're with me. You don't have to be scared anymore." Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. "Daddy, can Duke sleep here too?" "Of course he can. He'll watch over you." Jack picked her up gently and brought her to the bedroom. He let her choose where she wanted to sleep. Lily looked at the bed, then at Jack. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" Jack nodded. "As long as you want." He placed her on the bed and sat next to her. Duke curled up on the floor beside them, resting his head near Lily's feet. Lily whispered, "I don't want to go back there." Jack stroked her hair. "You won't." Her breathing finally slowed, and her eyes closed. Within minutes, she was asleep, her small hands still gripping Jack's fingers. He stayed sitting on the bed for a long time, watching her sleep. He didn't want to move. He didn't want to break the moment of peace she finally had. He looked at the bruises on her arms again. He thought about the fear in her eyes when she saw Carl, and he thought about the empty expression Megan had, as if her daughter was not her responsibility anymore. Jack made a quiet promise to himself. He was going to protect Lily at any cost, and tomorrow he would start gathering every piece of truth he needed to make sure that Carl, and anyone else who let this happen, would never have a say in Lily's life again. The next morning arrived quietly. The apartment was still dim because Jack had closed the curtains to keep the room warm. Lily slept next to him, curled under the blanket, her breathing soft and steady. For the first time since yesterday, she looked peaceful. Duke slept on the floor beside the bed, one ear raised as if he never fully relaxed. Jack opened his eyes slowly, careful not to wake Lily. His body felt stiff from sleeping in one position all night, but he didn't mind. What mattered was that Lily had slept without fear. He gently slid off the bed, making sure her hand slipped away from his without waking her. Duke stood up instantly, shaking his coat, then followed Jack quietly out of the bedroom. In the kitchen, Jack poured himself a cup of coffee. He needed it. His mind was already full of plans, worries, and responsibilities. CPS would meet him in a few hours. He needed to get documents ready: ID, proof of employment, rental agreement, anything that proved he could provide for Lily. He took a slow sip, trying to clear his head, but the image of Lily's bruises kept returning. Each mark felt like a hit to his stomach. Duke came beside him, looking up with alert eyes. "I know, boy," Jack said quietly. "We've got work to do." Duke wagged his tail once, as if acknowledging the seriousness of the day. About an hour later, Jack heard small footsteps behind him. He turned to see Lily walking out of the bedroom. She wore one of Jack's old t-shirts that went down to her knees. Her hair was messy, and she rubbed her eyes with the back of her hand. Jack set the coffee down and crouched in front of her. "Morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep okay?" Lily nodded slowly. "Can I eat something?" "Of course," Jack said. "What do you want? Pancakes? Toast? Cereal?" She thought for a moment. "Toast." Jack made her 2 slices of toast with a little butter. Lily sat at the small dining table, eating quietly. Duke sat right beside her, watching closely but politely. Jack sat down across from her. "Today we have to meet with the lady from yesterday. Her name is Hannah. She will help us make sure you stay with me." Lily looked up, a hint of worry in her eyes. "Will Carl be there?" Jack shook his head immediately. "No. You won't see him, or your mother, not today." Lily relaxed slightly and continued eating. After breakfast, Jack helped her get cleaned up in the bathroom. He made sure to be gentle when brushing her hair, avoiding the bruises near her neck. She put on a small shirt and jeans he had kept from her earlier visits. The clothes fit her, but just barely. She had lost weight. "Daddy?" she asked quietly, looking at herself in the mirror. "Yes?" "Do I have to go back to that house?" Jack knelt beside her. "No, Lily. You're with me now. You'll stay with me while the people in charge look into everything." Her eyes softened with relief. She leaned forward and hugged him around the neck. "Okay." By late morning they were ready. Jack carried Lily to the truck while Duke hopped into the back seat. The heater warmed the inside quickly. The drive to the CPS office took about 20 minutes. The city was busier now. Cars, buses, and people going to work. Jack kept glancing at the rearview mirror to check on Lily. She sat quietly, looking out the window, holding Duke's collar for comfort. When they arrived, Jack parked in a visitor spot. He carried Lily again, even though she could walk. She didn't object. She wrapped her arms around him and rested her head on his shoulder. The CPS building was simple. Beige walls, glass doors, a small lobby. A receptionist greeted them. "Hello, can I help you?" "Yes," Jack said. "We're here to see Hannah Cole." The receptionist checked her computer. "She's expecting you. Take a seat, please." Jack sat down on the couch with Lily still in his lap and Duke sitting at his feet. Some people in the waiting area glanced at them, mostly at Duke, but said nothing. A few minutes later, Hannah appeared. She looked more formal than last night, neatly tied hair, dark blazer, folder in her hand. "Good morning, Jack. Morning, Lily." Lily gave a small nod. "Come with me," Hannah said. She led them down a hallway into a small office with 2 chairs and a couch. Jack sat on the couch with Lily beside him. Duke lay at their feet, head resting on his paws. Hannah sat across from them and opened her folder. "First, I reviewed the photos and the officers' reports from last night. I also contacted the hospital closest to your ex-wife's house. There are no records of Lily ever being brought in for injuries. That supports what we saw." Jack's jaw tightened. "She never got medical help?" Hannah shook her head. "No. And based on the marks, some bruises were deep enough to require attention." Lily lowered her head when she heard that. Jack gently placed a hand on her back. Hannah continued, "I also attempted to contact your ex-wife this morning. She answered, but refused to provide any details and said she was too overwhelmed. That is not acceptable from a parent." Jack felt anger rise again. She didn't care then. She doesn't care now. Hannah made a note on her paper. "At this point, I'm recommending emergency custody be granted to you until we finish our investigation. This will include home checks, interviews, and psychological assessments for Lily." Lily looked up at Jack. "Does that mean I stay with you?" Jack smiled softly. "Yes, you stay with me." Lily hugged him tightly. Jack kissed the top of her head. Hannah watched the interaction closely. "She trusts you. That's important," Jack nodded. "I'll do whatever she needs." Hannah flipped to another page. "Now I need to ask Lily a few questions. You can stay right beside her." Lily gripped Jack's arm but nodded. "Lily," Hannah said quietly, "when you were at your mom's house, did someone hurt you?" Lily whispered. "Yes." "Who?" "Carl." "Did he hurt you more than once?" Lily nodded again. "How often?" Lily hesitated, then answered softly, "A lot." Jack clenched his fist, but stayed quiet for Lily's sake. Hannah kept her voice calm. "Did your mom see it?" Lily swallowed. "Sometimes." "And what did she do?" "She told me to stop making him angry." Jack felt his chest twist. He had to look away for a moment to control his emotions. Hannah wrote it down. "Okay, Lily, you're very brave. That's enough for now." Hannah looked at Jack. "We will file charges based on this. It will take time, but the law is on your side." Jack nodded. "What about his access to her?" "Effective immediately, Carl has no contact with Lily. None." "And Megan?" Jack asked. "For now, supervised visitation only, but likely suspended until further review." Lily touched Jack's hand. "I don't want to see them." "You won't," Jack said gently. "Not until you feel safe." Hannah closed the folder. "Take her home. Keep her comfortable. A therapist will reach out within the week for evaluation. And Jack, make sure she's not left alone with anyone except you." Jack nodded. "I understand." As they left the office, Lily held Jack's hand tightly. Duke stayed close as they walked to the truck. When they got inside, Lily looked up at Jack. "Daddy, will everything be okay now?" Jack turned toward her, brushing her hair back gently. "Yes, sweetheart, it will. I'm not letting anything happen to you again." Lily leaned into him, relieved. Jack started the truck. The past was behind them now, but the fight for Lily's future had just begun. Jack drove the truck back toward his apartment, while Lily leaned against him, holding Duke's collar from the back seat. She looked exhausted. Her eyelids drooped every few seconds, and her small body leaned toward Jack whenever the truck slowed. Jack kept checking the rearview mirror to make sure she was okay. When they reached the apartment parking lot, Jack turned off the engine and looked back at her. "Ready to go inside?" Lily nodded, though she didn't speak. Duke shifted forward, pressing his forehead gently against her shoulder. She smiled weakly and petted him. Jack got out, lifted Lily into his arms, and closed the door quietly. Duke stayed close, walking beside them. Inside the apartment, Jack set Lily down on the couch. Duke hopped up next to her, lying against her side like a protective shield. Jack sat in front of her and spoke softly. "Sweetheart, before we relax, I need to make a few calls. CPS told me they might check in again today. You stay with Duke, okay?" Lily nodded and leaned into the dog. Jack stepped into the kitchen and pulled out his phone. The first call he made was to his lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, a steady, straightforward man in his 50s with gray hair and glasses. He had helped Jack through the divorce. Mr. Reynolds answered on the third ring. "Jack, it's been a while. I need your help," Jack said without hesitation. "It's about Lily." Reynolds' tone changed instantly. "Tell me everything." Jack explained what happened. The bruises, the officers, CPS, Carl's behavior, Megan's neglect. Reynolds listened without interrupting. When Jack finished, Reynolds spoke firmly. "You did the right thing by taking her. I want you to keep her with you. Don't return her under any circumstances unless CPS directly orders it. And record any call from Megan or Carl." "Understood," Jack replied. "I'll file for an emergency custody modification today," Reynolds continued. "Given the evidence, you have a strong chance of gaining full custody. But stay alert. People like Carl don't always take these situations calmly." "I know," Jack said, glancing at Lily on the couch. "I'm not letting him near her. I'll email you forms this afternoon. Fill them out and send them back. And Jack, don't let your guard down." "I won't." After ending the call, Jack felt a little more prepared, but the tension in his chest didn't disappear. He walked back to the living room, where Lily was sitting quietly. She was hugging Duke's neck, her face half hidden by his fur. "You okay?" Jack asked. She nodded, though her eyes still looked distant. "Do you want to rest?" Lily shook her head. "Can we watch something?" Jack smiled softly. "Of course." He turned on the TV and put on one of Lily's favorite shows, something simple and calm. She watched quietly, her hand resting on Duke's back. Jack sat down at the small table with a pen and notebook. He started, writing down everything he needed to remember. Dates, details, bruises, things Lily had said, times of calls. The more organized the information, the stronger his case. While he worked, Lily looked over at him. "Daddy?" Jack stopped writing. "Yeah, sweetheart. Do I have to tell them everything again about Carl?" Her voice trembled, and her fingers curled tightly into Duke's fur. Jack came over and knelt beside her. "You only have to say what you feel okay saying. No one will force you to talk more than you want. And I'll be with you every time." Lily looked relieved. "Okay." Jack stroked her hair. "You're very brave." They spent the next hour quietly in the apartment. Lily watched TV, Duke dozed with one eye open, and Jack filled out the paperwork that Mr. Reynolds sent. At around noon, there was a knock at the door. Duke jumped up immediately, barking sharply. Lily froze. "It's okay," Jack said, touching her shoulder. "I'll see who it is." He approached the door cautiously and looked through the peephole. It was Officer Reyes. Jack opened the door. "Officer, everything all right?" Reyes nodded. "I wanted to check in and make sure Lily is safe. CPS asked me to do a welfare follow-up before court orders go through." Jack stepped aside. "Come in." Reyes entered, her eyes scanning the apartment quickly, checking safety, cleanliness, and environment. She saw Lily on the couch and smiled softly. "Hi, Lily. Do you feel safe here?" Lily nodded. "Are you hurt anywhere right now?" Lily shook her head. "Is Duke being a good boy?" Reyes asked, smiling. For the first time, Lily gave a very small smile. "Yes." Reyes took notes. "Good." She turned to Jack. "I also came to inform you that Carl made a complaint." Jack felt anger rising. "Of course he did." Reyes nodded calmly. "He accused you of taking Lily without his permission." Jack scoffed. "She's my daughter." "I know," Reyes said, "and CPS knows. The complaint won't go far because we already logged everything. But I needed to tell you so you're not surprised." Jack's voice grew firm. "He's not getting anywhere near her." Reyes gave a small nod. "We agree, but be careful. He was angry this morning." "He can be angry all he wants," Jack said. "He's not touching my kid again." Reyes closed her notebook. I'll file this visit report. From what I see, Lily is in a safe and stable environment. That will help in court. Thank you, Jack said. Reyes walked to the door. Call us if anything happens. Don't try to handle Carl alone. Jack nodded. When the door closed, Lily looked at him nervously. Is Carl coming? Jack sat beside her. No, he can't. And he won't. She leaned into him, trusting his words. A few minutes later, Jack's phone buzzed. It was a message from Megan. Megan, we need to talk. You can't take her from us. Jack stared at the message for a full 10 seconds, then showed it to Lily. Do you want to talk to your mom? Lily shook her head quickly. No, she didn't help me. Jack deleted the message and blocked the number. You don't have to talk to her. Not until the court says otherwise. Lily hugged his arm tightly. As the day went on, Jack tried to make the apartment feel normal. He cooked a simple lunch, scrambled eggs and toast. Lily ate slowly, but finished her plate. Duke stayed close to her the entire time. Later, Jack set up some drawing paper and crayons on the table. Do you want to draw something? He asked. Lily hesitated, then nodded. She sat at the table and began drawing carefully. Jack didn't look at the paper at first. He wanted her to have her own space, but when he finally glanced over, his heart tightened. She had drawn a small girl holding the hand of a man with a big beard, a dog beside them. Behind them, a house with dark windows. Is this us? Jack asked softly. Lily nodded. The house behind is where Carl lives. Jack placed a hand on her back. You're not going back there. She leaned against him again, silent but trusting. By early evening, Lily grew tired. Jack helped her onto the couch with a blanket. Duke curled up next to her, resting his chin on her stomach. Lily looked down at him and smiled. Daddy, she said quietly. Yes? Do I get to stay here forever? Jack felt his throat tighten. He sat beside her and brushed her hair gently. Yes, sweetheart. My home is your home. I'm not letting anyone take you away again. Lily closed her eyes slowly. Okay. Within minutes, she fell asleep. Jack sat on the floor next to the couch, leaning back against it. Duke kept watch. The room was quiet, but Jack's mind was full. He knew the investigation was only beginning. There would be court hearings, interviews, and challenges ahead. Carl would fight back. Megan might try to regain control. But Jack was ready. He looked over at Lily, finally safe, finally resting. He made himself a promise. He was going to win. He was going to protect her, and he was never leaving her again. The next morning was brighter than the day before. Sunlight came through the curtains and warmed the apartment. Jack woke up early, as usual. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lily still curled on the couch, where she had fallen asleep. Duke was lying beside her, with his head resting near her hip, watching over her the entire night. Jack sat up slowly. His muscles were sore, but he didn't complain. He walked into the kitchen quietly, made coffee, and looked over the paperwork his lawyer had sent him. Today was important. Hannah from CPS would file her report, and the first court meeting would be scheduled soon. But something else needed to happen today, too. Jack had to talk to Lily about the future, about what she wanted, and what would happen next. After a few minutes, Lily woke up. She stretched her arms and rubbed her eyes. Duke lifted his head and wagged his tail gently. Good morning, Jack said softly. Morning, she whispered. Are you hungry? A little. Jack made her oatmeal with fruit. It was simple and soft, something easy for her to eat. She sat at the table with Duke lying at her feet. While she ate, Jack sat across from her. He didn't rush. He wanted her to feel safe before they talked. Lily, he said calmly, we need to decide what happens next. She stopped eating and looked up carefully. I know all of this has been scary, Jack continued, but you're safe with me now, and I want you to stay here, but I need to know what you want. Lily's lip trembled slightly. She stared at her bowl for a moment before answering. I want to stay with you. I don't want to go back, not to that house. Jack reached across the table and held her hand gently. Then that's what we'll fight for. Will they get mad? She whispered. Mom and Carl? Jack shook his head. That doesn't matter anymore. You did nothing wrong. They don't get to decide what happens to you. Lily nodded slowly. Jack added, we have a meeting tomorrow. People from the court will ask questions. I'll be right next to you the entire time. No one will make you go anywhere alone, okay? She said softly. After breakfast, Jack helped Lily get dressed. He gave her a small hoodie that used to be hers from a few years ago. It was a little tight, but wearable. He made a note to buy her more clothes later. Around noon, his phone buzzed. It was his lawyer calling. Jack, I submitted the emergency custody petition, Reynolds said. Given the evidence, the judge will likely approve temporary full custody to you within 48 hours. After that, we'll prepare for a full custody hearing. Jack nodded into the phone. Good. What about Carl? He'll be questioned, Reynolds replied. Given the injuries, he's facing criminal charges. He may be arrested soon. Megan will be questioned as well for failure to protect a minor. Jack looked over at Lily, who was drawing quietly on the floor. Duke sat beside her, his head tilted as he watched her crayons move. She can't see them again, Jack said firmly. Not unless she chooses to. That's what we're fighting for, Reynolds said. Stay alert, and don't open the door to anyone you don't trust. Understood. After the call, Jack sat beside Lily and watched her draw. She was sketching a picture of Duke sitting next to a small girl. The girl had a big smile. It was a much happier drawing than the one she made yesterday. By mid-afternoon, Jack decided they needed a bit of sunlight and fresh air. Not far from the apartment was a small park, quiet, clean, and usually empty during weekdays. Lily, Jack said, do you want to go to the park for a little while? She looked up. Will Duke come? Of course he will. She nodded. Jack packed a small bottle of water and a snack into his backpack. He helped Lily put on her shoes and lifted her into the truck. Duke hopped in too. The drive took only 5 minutes. The park was mostly empty, just one older man sitting on a bench reading a newspaper and a woman jogging on the path. Jack held Lily's hand as they walked along the grass. Duke stayed right beside them, sniffing the ground and checking their surroundings. Lily didn't speak much, but her shoulders relaxed as she watched the trees and listened to birds. After a few minutes, she asked quietly, Daddy, did you miss me? Jack looked down at her, surprised she even needed to ask. Every single day, he said. There wasn't one day I didn't think about you. She squeezed his hand. I missed you too. They sat on a bench near the small playground. Lily watched a couple of children playing in the distance, but didn't join them. She stayed close to Jack. Do I have to talk in the meeting tomorrow? She asked. Maybe a little, Jack said, but you don't have to say anything you don't want to say. The most important thing is that they know you're safe and happy with me. Lily nodded. They stayed at the park for an hour. Duke spent most of the time sitting beside Lily or leaning against Jack's leg. When the wind started getting colder, Jack decided it was time to go home. Back at the apartment, Jack helped Lily take a warm shower. He made sure the bruised areas were not touched too roughly. Afterward, he gave her clean clothes and brushed her hair gently. She liked that. She sat still and closed her eyes while he worked. For dinner, Jack made pasta with a little cheese. Lily ate more this time than she had yesterday. Duke sat patiently near her chair, tail moving lazily. When dinner was finished, Lily sat beside Jack on the couch. Daddy, what happens if the judge says I can't stay with you? She asked suddenly, fear returning to her voice. Jack immediately took her hand. Listen to me, Lily. That won't happen. The judge wants what's best for you. Everyone saw the bruises. Everyone heard what you said. They know you weren't safe. Lily hesitated. But what if they don't believe me? Jack shook his head. They will, and I'll be there to make sure of it. She leaned against him and whispered, I'm scared. Jack wrapped his arm around her. I know you are, but you're not alone anymore. You have me, and Duke, and a whole team of people who want to help you. Duke pressed his head against Lily's leg, as if agreeing. Lily placed her hand on top of Duke's head and took a slow breath. I want to stay here, she said firmly this time. I want to live with you forever. Jack felt something loosen in his chest, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope. He hugged her gently. You will. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep in the bedroom, Jack sat on the couch with Duke lying at his feet. He looked around the apartment, the quiet space, the warm light, the safety of it all, and knew that life would never be the same. He picked up the phone and checked messages. Nothing from Megan or Carl. Good. The less he heard from them, the better. Tomorrow would be difficult. Court meetings, questions, more paperwork. But Jack was ready for it. He looked toward the bedroom where Lily slept. This was the start of something new. A new home, a new chance, a new life for Lily, one where she wouldn't be hurt again. Jack placed his hand on Duke's back. We're going to make this right, he said quietly. Duke closed his eyes and sighed, as if he agreed completely. This story reminds us that when people feel powerless, God still creates miracles. He never abandons the innocent. He sends the right people at the right moment to protect them and bring truth to light. In everyday life, no matter what struggles you face, remember, God sees you, God hears you, and He is always with you. If you believe God is watching over your family, please like, subscribe, share this video, and comment Amen as a prayer for peace and blessing. May God protect you and your loved ones. Amen.